everyone, and welcome to A Knowing Spirit. Thank you for joining the podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome to the community. This is a place where people can share ideas, grow, and this is an online community of people of faith. So welcome. My name is Candace Paul, and I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Darian Eaton. There's Darian and David Chandler. So, and we're going to start talking about Hollywood. I think this is a very important topic to talk about right now because literally movies and film control the way that we look at the world. And so what the artists are doing, they're shaping the way that we see the world. So what do they want you to see? So we're going to talk about how it was before and where it's gone and what it's going to be. So we're going to get into that. So I'm going to let David tell us a little bit of the history of what Hollywood was before, what the standard was, and how it's changed. So David, let us know. Tell us.
Well, thank you, Candace, for allowing me onto your platform. It's just something that's been weighing on my heart, and God allowed me to gain this type of knowledge and pretty much bring it to you, convey it to the public. Hollywood wasn't always a satanic. It wasn't always satanic. We have to go all the way back to the 1920s. And I'm pretty sure you've all heard of the golden age of movies. That started way back in the 1927 when the Hays Code was established. And it was started by a guy by the name of William H. Hayes. And it was pretty much pushed forward by the Protestant Film Commission. The Protestant Film Commission was a parachurch organization, and they would periodically go and check on the movies. They would oversee some of the movies that were put out by a lot of the filmmakers and the screenwriters. And by the way, the Hays Code was about maybe it was a sort of kind of like an outline of the types of movies that were allowed to be proliferated to the public. And one of the things with that was the rules. I'm sorry, was to not put any movies or convey any ideas that were anti-Christian in nature. And so that's why you had movies like the Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur. The Ten Commandments came out I think it was in the 50s with Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner. And it was a great movie. It used to come out during the holiday season, around Easter and around the Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays. And it was extremely biblical. It was it adhered to the scriptures, the book of Exodus, I think it was 20, if I'm not mistaken, when the Jews were from the birth of Moses all the way up to when the Jews were taken out of Egypt.
Okay.
And so, then you had Ben-Hur, then you had a lot of other movies, but it started waning as time wore on. It lasted for about 40 years, from 1927 all the way until 1966. Now the code started to wane because you had other filmmakers and screenwriters that were kind of rocking the boat, so to speak. And they were...
Can I just interject for 1 second? So just to synthesize or summarize all that you said, because you just gave us great information. So basically, there was a standard for the movie industry that was pretty much guided by the Hays Code. And it had a lot of Christian values, and there were Christian leaders and people like that who actually had a say in how movies were made, or they at least consulted with directors and in people who were in the film industry, artists, about how it should go. And in 1966, it was recanted. It was done away with.
Well, it was pretty much the Hays Code was a standard, right? And it was established by William H. Hayes. Now the Protestant Film Commission was the one that actually dictated to these guys as to what types of movies were to be proliferated to the public.
Okay.
And during the 50s, it started to wane simply because there were individuals, other screenwriters and filmmakers were beginning to have problems with the types of films that were being pushed out there. So it was around 1966 when the Hays Code was abandoned altogether. The church left. And Anton LaVey, who was the founder of the Church of Satan, which was established that very year, as a religious body, he started collaborating and consulting with those very same screenwriters and those very same filmmakers, like Kenneth Anger was one, Roman Polanski was another, and a few others. And in 1968, Rosemary's Baby came out. That was the year before the Manson murders took place.
Wow. So then we start to see this shift in how movies are done. And
right. And then that's called a paradigm shift. When you have a shifting in morals and values, that's called a paradigm shift. That affects the culture as a whole. That affects how people live, how people act, how people view certain things. Their overall worldview starts to change with each generation because of that particular paradigm shift. You have a paradigm shift when pertaining to homosexuality, abortion, gay marriage, and things of that sort. And all these movies that came after that, after 1966, started to blur those lines. You saw more shows that emphasize sexuality, women running around naked and things of that sort. And like, for instance, you have a guy by the name of it was a movie called The Wild Ones. You had a lot of shoot 'em up movies, and then in the 70s, you had a lot of exploitation movies, where you had pimps and things of that sort. And then the family started to be downplayed more and more, but it was a gradual thing. It didn't happen overnight. We saw the fruits of it during the 80s, and it was blatant occultic themes in a lot of your horror movies, like Hellraiser by Clive Barker, Nightmare on Elm Street by Wes Craven, Friday the 13th. I don't know who started that, but Wishmaster, Child's Play, and things of that sort. Halloween was written by John Carpenter, and he was another individual that was in the occult. They think of, and you sit back and you wonder how do they think of these things? But well, because they consulted. I knew a friend that's on Facebook, and I'm not going to name her. I'm not going to say her name, but she knew a guy by the name of Forey Ackerman. He had a magazine. I can't remember the name of it now, but she had a magazine. He had a magazine, and he knew guys like Stephen King, guys like L. Ron Hubbard, and guys like Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons was an occultist. And Kenneth Anger knew Forey Ackerman as well. He's another film director. He directed two films, Lucifer Rising, which came out, I believe, in 1968, and Invocation of My Demon Brother, which came out in 1970. And these all depicted Satan. They were all Satan. This was all in the worship of Satan in the occult. And the Rolling Stones knew Kenneth Anger, and a lot of other guys did as well. He's an old man now. He's probably in his 80s, but he knew a lot of these guys. It's a rabbit hole. It goes deep.
Wow. That was interesting. Darian, do you have any thoughts just hearing that?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to unpack. In reference to just the cultural view, I mean, we were talking the other day about like what is it, just this cathartic mindset of affecting different generations slowly, like the 60s, 70s, generationally it seems like these things are taking effect
Yeah.
gradually, lock and
Oh, I'm
key.
sorry.
They're unfettering this stuff that was held down, and now these views, in my opinion, they sound a little demonic. Um, Gradually, they're relinquishing them back to the community, and culturally, we're seeing today that people are more and more depraved. Um, a lot of the horror type stuff has made children desensitized.
Yep.
2020, we had, from then the 60s to 2020, we've had tons of mass murders, tons of shootings,
Yep.
tons of serial killers, tons of copycats.
I wanted to get into that. I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to get into the whole cathartic view of art, and what that is basically is the writers, and it's no longer about like you and I, Darian. We just want to tell a story. That's the crux of what creativity is. Uh, Artists like to just draw, to do art. Sequential art, they just like sequential artists. They just want to do sequential art, comic books, and things of that sort. But the cathartic view is pretty much uh, they don't want to just tell a story. They want to push boundaries. They want to push the boundaries of morality, change social mores, change the culture. Aleister Crowley said, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." The law meaning thelema, and that's in thelemic occultism, which basically means law, or love is the love law. Law is the law under will, which means thelema. But in the 60s, they translated that into do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody. And so in the arts, you have exactly this worldview. So, for instance, you mentioned something about serial killers. Ted Bundy said before he was executed to James Dobson that he used to view pornography. Now, we don't know if this is true or not, but this is what he said. He used to buy it. He used to look at it, and all these detective comics. He would read, and it would desensitize him to the point of him wanting to murder women and to commit sexual violence. You have Jeffrey Dahmer, who viewed The Exorcist 3, and he also viewed, this is what the media didn't tell you, but he also viewed a movie called Hellraiser, all of them. He viewed all of the Hellraiser movies. And he also believed in what is known as dialectical materialism, or dialectical social evolution, or social Darwinism, which he believed that man is nothing more than just an highly intelligent animal. Bundy believed in the same thing because he went to college for psychology, and of course, psychology. A lot of these guys in the psychology field, like Freud, was into evolution. Alfred Adler was into evolution. A guy by the name of Erik Erikson believed in evolution. And so Bundy studied these guys, and he believed that what's the difference between me killing you and killing a rat or a mouse? Another serial killer by the name of Danny Rolling, who was known as the Gainesville Ripper out in Florida, killed about 5 co-eds. He also viewed a movie known as I think it was the Hellraiser films as well. And he these are the kinds of things that already that have stoked the fire that was already there, that was already smoldering. And so so with the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, one more example, listened to AC/DC and another rock or heavy metal band by the name of Judas Priest. That the name of that song was Jack the Knife. And the AC/DC song that Ramirez listened to when he went out on the murder spree was Night Prowler. That was the name that was given to him, or he gave himself when he was during his arraignment in 1989.
Wow. Everything that you just said is, I mean, it's spot on. And what you're talking about is how these movies can influence people's behavior and influence what they do. And so there was a movie that you actually shared with me. It was called Satanic Hollywood, I think. And what's the full title of it? Do you remember? Pandora's Box. I think something like that.
Pandora's Box, and it was exposing Satanic Hollywood.
Exactly. And I'll share the link with everyone. It's actually on our playlist on A Knowing Spirit, so you can check it out. But essentially, they were talking about how advertising really influences people. Even when you think that you perceive that, oh, yeah, I know that this is an advertisement, it's not affecting me at all. It does. It has a very strong effect. And the gentleman who was in the movie, he was kind of narrating the film. He used the example of how in Risky Business with Tom Cruise, Ray-Ban sunglasses, that one scene where it zooms in on Tom Cruise wearing Ray-Ban sunglasses, how sales for Ray-Bans went up 1,400% after that film. The same with James Dean wearing leather jackets and all of these different things. And so a very poignant thing that was said in the film was, if you think that just product placements can have that much of an effect on a person, what do you think whole films have on a person's mind? So when you're literally showing films that have extreme violence, extreme sex, just a lot of these very emotional acts where it's trying to get you to feel something, because that's what catharsis is. It's supposed to be an emotional release. And so if you're watching a movie for 2 hours and every couple of scenes you see something violent or you see something sexual, what will that do to your psyche? And it's kind of these things that we ingest. So I guess now I want to talk about, that's what it was then.
Mm-hmm.
What has it become now? So we were talking about how this is a generational thing, and each generation it gets progressively worse. Now you can turn on the TV, and on regular cable television or even regular television, you will hear curse words, cuss words, blasphemous words. You will see some sort of sex or something. And even in children's cartoons, all of these innuendos and these jokes and these subtleties, they're embedded in there, and it's getting worse. So what are some examples that you guys have seen with this type of stuff? And I'll let Darian start off.
It's all over the place, specifically in the gaming. Tons of sexual. There's a new game out called Cyberpunk. It's definitely an adult themed game. Apparently Cyberpunk is based off of a some form of a book of some sort. Nonetheless, in this particular game, when you're in the creative phase of the game, you can opt to take. So this is a role-playing game, RPG. You can buy it on like Xbox, PlayStation, stuff like that. Probably PC. And there's an option where you can actually change your like privy member size to whatever size you want. Apparently there's a part, like some sex scenes in the game. So if they show, and I looked it up, you can you have the ability on this particular game to either default to trousers, like shorts, like underclothes, or you can turn that feature off, and you can literally put genitalia on your body. And and range the size of your, you know what, or you could put like the right pubic hairs and all that. Like, it's too much. I'm like, okay. So on a game, you're desensitizing the ability. You can actually build whatever kind of character you want. And this is a game that's on like the level of Grand Theft Auto, but it's sci-fi related. So you take that and then you add the cyberpunk type of stuff and the sexual, those little pockets of sex and murder and witchcraft and technology together in one place. So I would say that in today's pop culture, everything back then has probably come to a head where it's premium disgust. And I'm not happy with my kids being able to have access to this type of stuff. It's just what it is. So.
And it's literally a click away now. Like a click away. David, any feedback?
Oh yeah.
Well, I think that the occult is really, really prevalent now, more so in a lot of your commercials. Remember that commercial that you told me about 2 weeks ago about this woman? It was on Match.com now.
Yep.
This woman meets Satan.
Oh yeah, Date Satan from Match.com.
Yeah, and they're walking around and they're sitting together, arm in arm, and he's doing this and she's doing that, and they're laughing and joking. And I'm sitting there. This was one night when I was watching, I think it might have been Law and Order. And I'm sitting there saying, oh my God.
Yeah.
They're just punching you in the face with like, bam, hi, I'm Satan. Want to go to hell with me? Come on. I'm right here. We all float down here,
It's becoming, and that was part of the thing that they also mentioned in the film. They desensitize you to religion as well too. So basically people who are Christians or people who are people of faith, they kind of make us caricatures, like almost like jokes, so
I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to focus on that for about maybe 10 minutes. We're caricatures. I've watched The Simpsons. I've watched, I don't watch South Park at all. I don't care how funny they think or they try to make it seem, but I'll watch.
Down into the camera a little bit, yeah, perfect.
But I watched The Simpsons, where this guy, Ned Flanders, now he's supposed to be a Christian man, but he's made to look like a complete blithering buffoon. Yeah. Oakley dokley. That kind of stuff. And I'm saying to myself, we don't act like that. Christians don't act like that. Married with Children. There was an episode where Al goes to this priest, because he felt like he was not being faithful to Peg. So Peg goes with him, and the priest is saying all kinds of stupid stuff. There was a show, the reality shows they're coming out with this guy called The Rev. It's coming out on Netflix, and he doesn't look real. His beard is all plastered on. He looks like a claymation figure that they just brought to life, and his family is just loud and disrespectful and things of that sort, and it's just like we're just made to look like complete buffoons. Criminal Minds, where this one last example, Criminal Minds, where Shamar Moore, his character, Derek Morgan, he says he doesn't believe that there's anything out there. So Reed tells him, well, in order for there to be good, there has to be evil. And so when he goes to see the priest about the serial killer, the priest is interviewing the guy, and he's all benevolent and he's pious until he says that, okay, well, he supposedly ate the victim that he murdered. So now he reaches over to the table and starts cursing and saying all kinds of things. And I'm saying to myself, well, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be a religious person? What are you doing using profanity?
And so it's you hit the nail right on the head. Basically every example that we see on television about a person of faith, it's a joke. It's to make a joke out of it, and to really just desensitize you into not even thinking that it's serious at all. A good example, and this is actually what kind of spurred this discussion. I watched Ma Rainey's Black Bottom on Netflix, and it's an adaptation of an August Wilson play, and it's star-studded. It has Viola Davis, Chadwick Boseman. It's his last role in that he acted in. And so, for those who want to see it, this is a bit of a spoiler, so check out here if this is a thing. This isn't going to really break down all of the movie, but there's a part in the movie where Chadwick Boseman has this very long soliloquy where he discusses very passionately his experiences being a Black man in the South and what he had to deal with. Mm-hmm. And then he starts to blame God. And I see that this is a theme that happens a lot in movies, especially with a lot of Black movies and films, where God becomes like the entity to be blamed for everything. So he goes on this long rant and rails on, Christ, and literally says he's an MFer in his monologue. And it was shocking. It was very shocking. And a lot of people have said, like, this was a great play. Chadwick acted wonderfully and all this. But that was so integral to his performance. And to me, this is where we are now. Like, that is a standard thing in a lot of films, and no one cares. It's like, okay, whatever, So
but think of it from a scriptural view. In terms of music. I know this is about television, but we're talking about, if we're going to talk about the entertainment industry, I just want to make this example to kind of tie into everything that we've talked about. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 19 through 21, we have Paul saying that our music should be spiritual. So everything, and then go back to Psalms, I will not see anything wicked before my eyes. So that means that anything that's wicked or evil or satanic, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to view it. I'm not going to say, try to go to the movies and support it financially in any way. But let's go back to, I guess, 30 years ago, during, my time. I was a kid back in the 80s. We had cartoons that were blatantly satanic that I didn't even know about. You had Masters of the Universe. You had a lot of your Japanese anime shows like Voltron and Wicked City, which came out in the 90s. But let's focus on the 80s for right now. You had She-Ra, Princess of Power, Thundercats. All of these shows were blatantly satanic, conjuring up spirits, people using sorcery as a way to view the future and things of that sort, and gaining power from it. And it was blatantly in your face. But of course, we were children, so we didn't know the difference. We didn't have any discernment, or we had very little discernment. And we were all told that, oh, it's a cartoon. So, we can't really, judge it or make a biblical judgment call on it. So let's fast forward to the 90s. It was getting worse and worse and worse. I can't think of any of the shows, but it was getting worse and worse. But all of this stuff was gradual, because the frog in the pot scenario was rang true. You can't put the frog in the pot and boil it right away, because it's going to jump out. But do it gradually, and it's not going to know what's happening to them. So that's what's happening. That's what happened to us. We slowly but surely became desensitized to television. And so now we can look at television and see somebody getting spontaneously combusted and not bat an eye.
And, you know, we have 3 minutes left, but we're going to have to do a part 2 of this discussion because there's still so much to get into, because we talked about where it was, where it is now, and we're going to talk about where it's going. The Oscars now have new criteria for films to be able to even be placed or have a shot at earning a Best Oscar. You have to fulfill certain criteria. So we're going to talk about that in the part 2 discussion, what criteria that is now, because now we've almost gone full circle. So the Hays Code had like a Christian theme where films had to fall into certain categories and have certain themes. So now, coming upon 2021, 2022, 2023, now films have to have certain criteria in order to be nominated for Oscars, but it's the opposite of Christianity. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to have a part 2 discussion. So I just want to take a moment to give a pitch for A Knowing Spirit. For all those who have stayed with us and listened to this discussion, there are going to be a lot more discussions like this in 2021 and beyond. We are actually going to focus on building our YouTube channel. So make sure that you subscribe, smash that notification button, and just join the community. So we will talk to you soon, and come and tune in for part 2. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Peace.